We talk a lot about the importance of positive role models in everyone's lives, but very rarely do we discuss the importance of negative role models in everyone's lives. And allow me to explain what I'm talking about. You see, I think it's very natural. I think it's an kind of an unspoken natural uh, instinct of human beings to be critical of the human beings that they interact with or the human beings that they know of or any human being they interact with. I think that um, there's an actual reason for this. Uh, you know, I think there's a reason for everything in nature. There's a purpose for it, and I think that purpose is that human beings have this instinct in them to critique other human beings and to seek out flaws in the behavior or the thinking of other humans, and to also seek out things that they agree with when it comes to other humans, or things that inspire them, or uh, people they look up to. Um, and so this process of having this critical eye um, is an important part of an individual's growth as an individual. And the thing is, um, what is a positive role model and what is a negative role model is very subjective and based on the individual. That is determined only by the individual themselves. Who falls under the good role model, bad role model category is never objectively defined by society itself in any way, or any group in society in any way. It always comes down to each unique individual and who they choose to see as a good role model or a negative role model. So, as I said before, we oftentimes see the good role model talked about and how it's important for everyone to have someone they can look up to and someone who they can adopt these good aspects that these people have to themselves and become better people because they have someone to look up to and emulate. And while that's all good and all, I would maybe even argue that negative role models are even more important and more crucial to the development of every individual, because it is the negative role models that inform each individual how they don't want to be. Now, it's easy to have this kind of good and bad dichotomy, this polarized binary good versus evil dichotomy type positive negative polarization, where you look at good role models as someone like Superman or Captain America, who are these benevolent, squeaky clean heroes who are lawfully good and do everything by the books, and are just have no personality and make no mistakes, and like are just these perfect beings. And you know that's kind of the vibe you get when you hear positive role model, you know and that can be extrapolated down to some actual positive role models of people who aren't just comic book characters, but who are actually out there doing good things. And like, oftentimes you will find that these real people, not just comic book characters, but the real good role models of the world, are people who got to that point not because they were born that way and were, you know, came from another planet, or because they were injected with a super soldier serum or any of this, but because they lived their lives and learned their lessons, and they had their own positive and negative role models of their own, and on their personal journey, they got to this point through making both mistakes and by rectifying those mistakes, or however they got there. Okay, so in other words, no one's perfect, and that is why this evolutionary mechanism exists. Because whether you believe in a biological evolution or not, you can examine that a societal evolution exists, a kind of collective human societal evolution exists, where we kind of use this process of being critical of others to kind of, change ourselves. And then the more we change ourselves, the more we reject these traits in others that we see as being a mistake, or they are wrong, or we don't like this. As the more we use them as an example as to how not to be, the more we grow as a person, the less hypocritical we are, and the more we can strive to be positive role models ourselves for other people. So when we have this kind of critical eye where we are looking for positive role models and looking for negative role models, we're doing it so that ultimately we can all start becoming better people. And the more we all become better people as individuals through this process, the more we all start becoming positive role models. And these negative role models start to, that whole need for that kind of starts getting less and less. Okay, but it's always a refinement process, of course. But at a certain point, we get to a point where we are evolving socially as a collective of humanity. And people will fight against this, and they will come up with names like social justice warrior, calling it woke, or they'll come up with another word to fight against this evolution of, becoming better people and becoming accountable, and, making the world a better place, and changing for the better. And eventually, as long as we all are having this critical eye of, and look, I'm 80 minutes into the video now, and I haven't even explained what a negative role model is. A negative role model is someone who you perceive them, and you see a behavior they engage in, or a way of thinking, or a way of being, or a way of talking, or a way of doing things, or they do certain things, or they say certain things, or they treat people a certain way, or they treat themselves a certain way, or, there are these things that you watch them do it and you go, wow, I don't want to be like that. Like, they're wrong. Like, that's wrong. Like, I don't want to be like that, personally, you. Okay, so I think, like I said, it's kind of natural for people to kind of pick out mistakes in others, or shortcomings in others, or flaws in others, or mistakes others make in terms of the way they think, or the way they treat others, or the things they do, or like it's like a natural thing for people to do that for their own personal growth and our own growth as a collective. It's important to have these negative role models. But the problem is, this natural instinct has been perverted into becoming hate, and to be turned into a mechanism to hate others, because this natural mechanism, it enters into its first stage of the critical phase, where you're being critical of everyone around you. But either by design, or through a flaw in nature, people have been not allowing it to progress to the stage of self-reflection and saying, well, I noticed this in someone and I don't want to be this way. So I'm going to use them as just an example of how not to be so I don't become like them. And people are now using this natural instinct to be critical of others to be hateful and to be mean to others and to say mean things to others and to basically be negative towards others, so that they're giving in to this instinct of being critical, but instead of keeping it to themselves, instead of using it as just an example of how not to be themselves, they externalize it and they are mean and hateful and negative toward a lot of people. And they never progress to a stage of self-reflection or trying to become better people or trying to learn or have any good role models or bad role models. They don't care about role models. They're just living, okay? And it spirals out of control, and that's why we have such a hateful world. And we have this negative world, this world filled with hate and negativity and kids being mean to other kids in school and people being mean to other people on the internet and sites like Twitter and Facebook and all these social media websites that are just filled with hate. Like Twitter is nonstop hate and it's all negativity. And it's because people don't understand the importance of negative role models that, you know, when you have a negative role model, like if you have someone like a family member and, you know, they've treated you like shit or they do something that's stupid or wrong, or like they're there to teach you how not to be. They're there to be a negative role model. And so is everyone else that you find these flaws in, that you can see that they're wrong about this, or they're wrong to think like that, or they're wrong to treat people like that. These are negative role models that are there to teach you how not to be. All right. So the importance of that is that, you know, to realize that these negative role models are not people that you hate. You do not hate them. You don't want to be mean to them. You don't think that they're bad people because they're not. You realize that everybody is imperfect, and you realize that you're just noticing a flaw in them that you don't want to harbor in yourself. And so you don't hate them, but you make a conscious effort to use them as an effigy and an example and an embodiment of these elements that you don't want to personally embody yourself. And it's not bad for you to do so. It's not evil or mean for you to do so, because it's something you're doing personally. And, you know, you're not saying anything to them. You're not being mean to them. You're just, you know, observing their behavior and reflecting on it and using it to inform you on how not to be as an example. Okay, and that's so important that we have that. Okay, because that's the only way we're going to grow. That's the only way we're going to grow as individuals and as a collective, is to notice these flaws in others and to notice them in ourselves. We have to be critical of ourselves, and I think we have that in our nature as well, and that's how it gets perverted into hateful thoughts, negative thoughts, people with self-image issues, people with self-confidence issues, people who are generally self-destructive or mean to themselves in general, unforgiving to themselves. You know, it happens. And it happens because we are, you know, we're living in a world where, you know, people are not making a conscious effort to become better people, or, you know, looking in others for positive traits to, you know, replicate and negative traits to kind of repel. And like I said, it's so important to do that, to change, to do everything you can to change, because that's what this critical eye is all about. We have this critical eye naturally inside of us, not to spread hate, not to hate on others, not to be mean to others, and not to hate on yourself or be mean to yourself, but to learn and change and self-reflect so that you can become a better person, not just for yourself, but for everyone around you, so that perhaps you don't know who's going to see you as the good role model, the positive role model. And the thing is, it's so important, okay? Because everyone learns differently. As individuals, sometimes we learn better from a negative role model than we do from a positive one. You know what I mean? Like some people learn more from Deadpool about morality than they do from Superman. All right? Just because it's a style difference. It's a way of learning, okay? So there have to be teachers that have different ways of teaching. Some teachers are positive role models, and they sit down and they tell the class, well, class, there's this thing called fire. Here's a picture of what fire looks like. It is very hot. And if you touch it with your hand or any other part of your body, you will be burned and it will hurt. So never do it, right? And for a percentage of students, they will absorb that knowledge from that positive role model, okay? But for another percentage of people, that will go in one ear and out the other, and they're really not going to understand that fire is hot, okay? And they might stick their hand in the fire because they didn't really get the lesson, okay? Because the teacher wasn't teaching it to them the right way. And they learn differently. So there has to be another teacher that's willing to stick their hand in the fire themselves in front of their students and burn their hand Darth Vader style and go, ow, oh shit, it hurts, ow, ow, and like show the pain, go through that pain in front of all of them so that they can view that. And seeing that teacher actually do that and then go through that pain and suffer those consequences, witnessing that teaches them. It clicks for certain people. That's how it clicks. And they learn that lesson that way, through observing someone messing up in front of them. Okay? So it's two different styles of learning, two different styles of teaching. And that is the reason why positive role models and negative role models are so crucial in this world. That's why it's unfair that positive role models get all the attention in terms of the whole concept in general. The focus is always on the importance of positive role models. I wanted to shed some light on the importance of negative role models and how they are, if nothing, they are equally important, if not negative role models being a bit more important than the positive ones. Okay? Because if you think about it, there's more wrong answers than there are right answers, right? So, so there's a reason for negative role models, and there's a reason that human beings kind of have this critical eye naturally. And it's important for humans to be educated on how to properly treat other human beings and to not be mean to others, and to, really put work into changing who they are as a person. Okay? Because, we're taught that, the only value you can earn in this world is monetary value, and that success in this world is measured by the amount of money you earn. And it's like, maybe that's not true. Maybe it's about how much you grow as a person, what you learn, like how you progress as a soul, as an individual, whatever you want to call it. Like maybe those lessons, that progress that you make by working on yourself and observing the world around you and using it as a way to navigate your inner world so that you can become a better person. So you can adopt the positive traits you see in others, and you can reject the negative traits you see in others inside yourself to grow, to be the best version of you possible, so that you can go on to not just to live your best life, but also go on to affect everyone around you, because you never know who's going to see you as a positive role model or see you as a negative role model. Either way, you are contributing to the growth of others and your own growth by being either or a combination of all. Because like I said, who you are doesn't determine if you're a good role model or not. Only the individual perceiving you determines whether you're a good role model or not, based on who they are as a person and who they want to be as a person. So society never objectively determines who's a good role model and who's a negative role model. It's always determined by the perception of the individual perceiving everyone else, who they determine for themselves is a good or bad role model. So the moral of the story is you got to just focus on being you, being the best you possible, and taking what you see around you, the good and the bad, and applying it to yourself to be the best you can be. And that is the truth. And that is why negative role models are so important. That's why we have all these, the story of good and evil, the oldest story ever told, the biggest cliche ever in storytelling. It should be a meme at this point, okay? Like, that's the reason we have the hero, the comic book superhero, and the supervillain. So we'll have that archetype of the good, the good example and the bad example, okay? So sure, they cloud that a bit, make it more subjective here and there. But that's what you're calculating with all those stories of morality and good versus evil. That's why we take little bits and pieces of that and incorporate it into our own journey, our own hero's journey. All right? Because we're all on our own hero's journey. That's why we need those positive role models and those negative role models in the real world around us that we can observe. Okay? That's why we have family members, lots of family members, lots of friends, lots of peers throughout our lives, the majority of them that are all negative role models. Okay? That's why a lot of people grow up having horrible lives, horrible home lives with their family, horrible lives at school, horrible lives at work, treated like shit, around all these narcissistic, abusive people. It's not because you deserve to be treated like shit or deserve to be surrounded by assholes or people you don't fit in with or people that hate you or people that are mean to you. It's because you're there to learn a lesson. You're learning lessons about how to not be, okay, and how important it is to not be like that. And unfortunately, sometimes we learn those lessons the hard way. But what's important is how we pass on that knowledge to other people and to other generations so that they can navigate their own moral journey and their hero's journey. And so that we can evolve as individuals and as a society, as a collective of human beings. So don't worry if you're a good role model or a bad. Just try to stay true to you. And through serendipity, through the choices of each individual and the uniqueness of each individual, you will be a good role model in many people's lives. You will be a bad role model in many people's lives. But what's important is that we all keep living and we all keep growing. And we all keep putting in that work to become better people. Because we all make mistakes. But it's those mistakes that teach us the lessons that make us wise. And those lessons that make us wise are the attributes and the experiences that contribute to us becoming people that others look at as good role models. All right. So never forget that. Never forget to love yourself and love others. Forgive yourself and forgive others. But hold yourself accountable and hold others accountable. And make sure to change. Have the courage to change and don't try to force others to change. Everybody else is on their own journey, and that journey is at its own pace, and you can't force people to learn lessons. You can't try to teach people lessons. You got to let life do that. You can't go out there trying to be a positive role model. You can't go out there trying to be a negative role model. That ain't what it's about. It's about trying to be you, the best you possible, and not worrying about what kind of role model you are. I mean, you can take it into account and be conscious of it and allow it to inform you of how to be a better person and be a better you, that you can take into account the fact that you are potentially a role model in one way or another to others. Okay, and don't use the necessity of negative role models as an excuse to be a shitty version of yourself or to make continued mistakes in the name of educating others, because you can't always be that teacher that sticks their hand in the fire, or you ain't going to have a hand left for your students 10 years down the road, man. You're going to run out of hands. What, you going to burn yourself up teaching a lesson about how fire hurts? That ain't worth it. That ain't worth it. So think about it, y'all. Think about it, and let's grow. Let's grow as individuals, and let's grow as a society. And let's quit trying to crucify each other. Let's quit trying to hate each other and cancel each other. Let's start trying to respect each other and understand each other. And ultimately, let's try to grow together. And let's have some accountability. That don't mean no kumbaya shit. Like, no, we can have kumbaya when there's no more killing and no more enslavement and all this stuff and all this. We have world peace and no more starvation and no more all this crap, okay? So in a perfect world, we can have that kumbaya. But we're never going to get to that perfect world if we keep ignoring our own personal journeys and our own personal growth. We can't ever focus on forcing growth on others. You have to let it happen naturally by changing yourself. Be the change you want to see in the world. Be the change you want to see in society. That's all you can ever be. Okay, you can never force others. You can never force others to learn any lesson, to learn any truth, to change anything about themselves in any way. You can only change yourself and live your best life and be the example that you want to set forth in this world to everything else, regardless if they perceive you as a good example or a bad example. Be unabashedly yourself and remember to love. Until then, peace out.